Ana Suarez always believed there were two types of rain, the kind that fell from the sky and the kind that fell inside people. On that October dawn, sitting at the window of her third-floor apartment, she felt both types flowing simultaneously. At 32 years old, Ana carried with her a quiet strength that few noticed at first glance. She was a woman of average height, with brown hair and eyes that seemed to hold too many stories for someone her age. An only child of parents who divorced when she was just 6 years old, she grew up learning to be invisible in moments of conflict and indispensable in moments of crisis, an exhausting balance that followed her into adulthood. She worked as a translator at a book publishing house, surrounded by other people's stories, immersed in words others had written. Perhaps because of this, she had difficulty finding her own words when she needed them most. James Wilson entered her life like summer storms do, without warning, intense and transforming everything. At 35, he was an engineer, the son of immigrants, with a handsome face marked by someone who smiled frequently, but also hid old pains behind that easy smile. He was the kind of man who made friends while waiting in line at the supermarket and couldn't walk past a dog on the street without stopping to pet it. They met in an independent bookstore downtown when both reached for the same book, a novel about second chances. James insisted that she take the book. Ana suggested they have a coffee while discussing who deserved the read more. 2 hours later, the book was forgotten on the table, and they were diving into a conversation that seemed endless. What started with a coffee turned into a dinner, then a weekend, and before they could really process it, they were sharing the same apartment, the same life, the same dreams. "I think we met at the right time," Ana confided once to her best friend Elena. "He was trying to prove to himself that he could trust again, and I was trying to prove I was worthy of trust." James carried deep scars from a previous relationship. Caroline, his ex-fiancée, had betrayed him while he was traveling for work, and worse, when he most needed emotional support after losing his father to a swift cancer. The double betrayal left him with a mistrust that manifested in the most unexpected moments, a prolonged glance at Anna's phone, questioning why she'd arrived half an hour late from work, or the heavy silence when she mentioned colleagues of the opposite sex. Anna, on the other hand, grew up believing she needed to be perfect to be loved. Her parents' contentious divorce and her mother's subsequent emotional absence as she dove into work made her believe that love was conditional, and that she had to do everything to keep people close, even if it meant giving up important parts of herself. In the early months, these differences seemed complementary. Ana understood James's insecurity and made a point of being transparent, sharing every detail of her day. James admired Anna's patience and made conscious efforts not to let the past interfere with the present. They married in a simple yet very happy ceremony. They built a calm routine, Sunday walks, Friday series, and an unspoken agreement always to talk before going to sleep, even if just to say, "I love you." But as it happens with poorly healed fractures, eventually the pressure of everyday life began to reveal the parts that had not healed properly. "Why didn't you tell me you were having lunch with Daniel today?" James asked one evening, his voice seemingly casual, but with that tension Ana knew so well. "Because it was a last-minute thing. He needed to discuss the translation of the next chapter," she replied, without taking her eyes off the book she was reading. "I didn't think it was important." "You didn't think it was important to tell me you had lunch alone with a man?" And there, in that seemingly simple question, lay the growing chasm between them. For James, every small omission was potentially the beginning of a betrayal. For Ana, having to justify her every move was exhausting, and a constant reminder that no matter how hard she tried, she would never be completely trustworthy in his eyes. When she found out she was pregnant, a year and a half after the wedding, Ana felt a mix of fear and hope. It wasn't planned. They had talked about having children, of course, but as a distant possibility, something for when they were more stable. Even so, when she saw the 2 lines on the pregnancy test, it felt as if the universe was offering her a fresh start. "We're going to have a baby," she told James that night, her voice trembling, her eyes attentive to every change in his expression. James's face went through a sequence of emotions: surprise, confusion, fear, and then something Anna didn't expect, a genuine joy that lit up his brown eyes. He hugged her, carefully lifted her off the ground and whispered, "We're going to be a family." The first months of pregnancy were a respite. James became caring in a way that Anna did not expect. He woke up earlier to prepare breakfast, accompanied her to all the appointments, and every night placed his hand on her belly, talking to the baby growing inside. Their arguments decreased. Insecurities seemed to have been temporarily silenced by the sound of the baby's heartbeat during ultrasounds. "I want our child to grow up knowing they are unconditionally loved," James said one night, while they were setting up the baby's room. "I want them to never doubt that we're here for them. Always." Anna smiled, hearing in those words an implicit promise. Maybe James was finally understanding that love didn't need to come with clauses of mistrust, that they could be different from the history they knew. However, in the 7th month of pregnancy, Anna noticed a subtle change. James began to ask questions about her day again, checked her phone when she showered, and became distant when she talked about work. Initially, she attributed the behavior to imminent fatherhood anxiety, until he asked the question that burst the bubble of peace they had created. "Anna, are you sure this child is mine?" The question fell between them like a crystal vase on a marble floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces impossible to collect. Anna felt as if she had been slapped, not just because of the implicit accusation, but because of the casualness with which he asked it, as if he were inquiring about the weather. "How could you, after everything?" she stammered, feeling the baby move inside her womb as if sensing her agitation. "It's a valid question," he replied, looking away. "Things happen. People make mistakes." "Not those people," Anna replied, her voice firm despite the tears. "Not me." That night marked the beginning of a heavy silence between them. They continued sharing the same house, the same space, preparing for the arrival of the baby, but there was an emotional distance that Anna did not know how to bridge. James participated in everything mechanically, as if he were fulfilling an obligation, not living a dream. When she went into labour, 3 weeks earlier than expected, Anna called James with trembling hands. He arrived at the hospital in record time, his eyes wide with fear and concern. During the 12-hour labour, he held her hand, wiped her sweat, and whispered words of encouragement. For a moment Anna thought that maybe, just maybe, the birth of the baby could heal the wounds that had opened between them. Benjamin was born at 3:47 a.m., weighing 3.2 kilograms, and with a strong cry that echoed through the delivery room. When the nurse placed the small red bundle on Anna's chest, she felt an overwhelming love she had never imagined possible. Benjamin was perfect, with tiny fingers, chubby cheeks, and surprisingly a tuft of red hair covering his head. "He is a redhead," James commented, his voice strange as he looked at the baby. "No one in my family is a redhead." "My grandmother was, remember? I showed you pictures," Anna replied, too exhausted to notice his tone. James did not respond. He just slowly stepped back, as if he needed space to process what he was seeing. Anna was too occupied admiring the miracle in her arms to notice the storm forming in his eyes. It was the next morning when everything fell apart. After a virtually sleepless night between feedings and nurse check-ins, Anna woke up to find James sitting in the armchair in the room, his eyes red, as if he hadn't slept either. "We need to talk," he said, his voice strangely calm. "As soon as you're discharged, I want to start the divorce process." Anna blinked, trying to figure out if she was experiencing a hallucination caused by exhaustion. "What?" "I can't do this," he continued, avoiding looking at the crib where Benjamin was sleeping. "I can't live a lie. I looked at him, Anna, and I can't see anything of myself in there." "James, you're talking about our son," she replied, her voice breaking. "Born after 9 months of a pregnancy, you attended every appointment." "9 months prove nothing," he retorted, finally looking at her. "Your strange behaviour at the beginning of the pregnancy, the messages you hid, the lunches with colleagues. I tried to believe, Anna. I swear I tried. But I look at this baby and I can't see my child there. Anna didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just felt an immense fatigue, as if she had been fighting a losing battle from the start. Without saying a word, she picked up her phone and made a call, ignoring James's protests. Elena, I need you to bring that envelope I left with you. Yes, now. It's urgent. 2 hours later, Elena entered the hospital room, hugged Anna for a long time, and handed her a sealed brown envelope. James watched the scene with suspicion. What is this? Something I hoped I would never need to use, Anna replied, handing the envelope to him. But that I arranged for when you asked me if the baby was yours in the 7th month. A prenatal DNA test. Non-invasive, safe for the baby. I managed to get your DNA sample with a toothbrush that accidentally fell into the trash. James's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. The silence in the room was deafening, interrupted only by the small noises Benjamin made while sleeping. When he finished reading the result, James collapsed into the armchair, the paper slipping from his fingers. 99.9999% probability of paternity. Benjamin was, unquestionably, his son. My God, he murmured, his face pale, hands covering his eyes. What have I done? Anna, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to say now, she replied, her voice exhausted but firm. You just asked for a divorce while I'm holding our newborn son, a son you accused of not being yours based on what? His hair colour? The silence that followed weighed a ton. Elena, realizing she was witnessing a moment too intimate, murmured that she would be in the cafe and discreetly left. I was a fool, James finally said, looking up at Anna. There was genuine pain in his eyes, a deep shame. I let my fears, my past, destroy what we had, what we built. Yes, Anna agreed, looking at Benjamin, who was now stirring, about to wake up. That's exactly what you did. The days that followed were hazy. Anna and Benjamin were discharged, and James took them home, where a strange atmosphere lingered over everything. He tried to help, to take care of the baby, but there was a distance that neither of them knew how to overcome. 2 weeks later, with the pain still very present, Anna asked James to move out temporarily. Not forever, she explained, cradling Benjamin in her arms. But I need space to understand what I feel, and you need to understand what you really want. James agreed, the tears he was trying to hold back finally escaping. I will seek help, he promised, gently touching Benjamin's little hand. Not for the wrong reasons this time, not to prove anything to you, but because I realize now that my ghosts almost destroyed the only good thing I ever had. The months that followed were a painful learning experience for both. James began therapy seriously, twice a week, delving into the roots of his mistrust, not just Caroline's betrayal, but his own family history, an absent father who had taught him, without words, that men were not trustworthy. Anna also sought help, gradually understanding that her pattern of trying to save relationships at any cost stemmed from the fear of abandonment she had carried since childhood. They kept in touch because of Benjamin. At first, tense meetings at the apartment door so James could see his son. Then, short conversations about the baby's needs. Until gradually, the conversations began to extend to other subjects. Never about them, always about safe topics. It was 8 months after Benjamin's birth that something changed. James had taken his son to spend the afternoon with him, and when he returned, Anna invited him in. He laughed for the first time today, James commented, smiling as he watched the baby now sleeping peacefully in the crib. A full laugh when I made that silly voice he likes. Anna smiled, feeling a lump in her throat. He loves you so much, she said softly. His eyes light up when you arrive. I'm afraid I don't deserve that love, James confessed, his voice low. That I'll never be able to make up for it. It's not about making up for it, Anna interrupted, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. It's about building something new, something better. That night, they talked for hours, not about going back, not about fixing what was broken, but about how they could be better, for Benjamin and for themselves. It was the beginning of something neither of them expected, a cautious friendship based on a raw honesty they had never experienced before. Gradually, that friendship began to blossom into something more. A dinner after putting Benjamin to sleep. A movie watched side by side on the couch. Small touches, a brush of hands, a quick hug that carried a new kind of intimacy built on more solid foundations. When Benjamin turned 2, James had been back in the apartment for 6 months. Not as the same man who had left, but as someone who had done the hard work on himself. Anna was not the same either. She had learned to set boundaries, to value her own voice, to not confuse love with self-denial. The birthday party was small, just the 3 of them, Elena and her parents, James's parents. Benjamin, now a talkative little boy with red curls that reminded everyone of Anna's grandmother, ran around the house with the boundless energy of children. In the kitchen, away from the guests' eyes, James held Anna's hand. "We almost lost everything," she said, her eyes shining as she watched her son through the slightly open door. "Forgive me once again, but it was there that I realized I needed to seek help," he replied, gently squeezing her hand. And in that simple moment both knew a profound truth, that real love is not the one that never fails, but the one that learns from failures. It is not the one that never doubts, but the one that chooses trust, even when there are reasons to doubt. It is daily work, constant choice, and above all, forgiveness, not as an erasure of the past, but as a promise of a different future. Benjamin grew up witnessing not a perfect relationship, but one that was authentic. He saw a marriage remain firm and strong for years. He saw his parents disagree and resolve conflicts with respect. He saw difficult moments being navigated through dialogue. And most importantly, he learned that the strongest love is not the one that never breaks, but the one that has the courage to rebuild itself, piece by piece, with more wisdom and compassion each time. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.